Hello, welcome to the GLP1 Hub podcast. My name is Ana Reisdorf. I'm a registered dietitian and GLP1 user. And this episode is going to be wild, y'all. I got a pharmacist to come on and talk about why GLP1 medications are so expensive. And it's not just the pharmaceutical companies. So it's going to be a really, really great interview. We're sharing all the dirt, getting it all out there so we can understand better what is going on. So just a couple of quick updates. We have a new sponsor rolling out today, Calocurb. You'll hear about them in a little bit. They will also be coming on the podcast to talk about their very innovative product in a few weeks. I also finally jumped on TikTok. You can find me at GLP1 Hub over there on TikTok. And I was hesitant to go onto TikTok because of all the drama. And I don't know, is it going to get banned? Is it not? I don't know. There's a lot. So I didn't want to put all my eggs into a basket that could just get taken away. It just seems kind of a little bit volatile, but I'm happy I did. Reasonable voices are needed over on the TikTok. There is some crazy stuff going on. So I hope you follow me over there if you like TikTok. And just a word of warning, be careful who you're following over there, because yes, it's different over there. I also want you to remember if you want some support, you're just starting on your GLP-1 journey, I have a whole store on the GLP-1 Hub website. That's glp-1hub.com. And we have a get started guide called Beyond the Shot, and then some meal plans and recipe collections. So if you're ever looking for quality information about nutrition, you can head over there to the store, and I'm working on more and more resources for you on the website. So if there's something that's missing, remember you can always text the show. So if you want some specific information that you're not finding, or you're not sure if people on the internets are telling the truth, you want to be sure to either head over to the website, or you can text me at the show and I will respond, because I'm always checking if people are texting the show. Anyway, let's get on to the episode. But first, a word from our new sponsor. I want to introduce you to our brand new podcast sponsor, Calocurb. Calocurb is a 100% natural appetite management supplement featuring amarasate, a patented hop extract developed in New Zealand over 15 years and backed by $30 million in scientific research from Plant and Food Research, New Zealand's largest Crown Research Institute. It works by activating gut-brain signals, including GLP-1, to help you feel full faster. It's clinically shown to reduce cravings by 40%, hunger by 30%, and calorie intake by 18% in just 1 hour. So whether you're working on general weight loss, maintaining your progress, or transitioning off GLP-1, Calocurb is natural and effective support tool to help you stay on track. So they are offering 10% off to my audience when you use the code ANA10. That's ANA 10, my name. It's just one N. You can go to calocurb.com. That's CALOCURB.com and use the code ANA10 to give it a try. Hello, welcome to the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I want to introduce Josh Sanders. He is a pharmacist and the director of pharmacy at Onsite RX, and I have been waiting for this conversation. My husband actually introduced us because they know each other through professional things. So thank you so much, Josh, for being here. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. So I graduated pharmacy school back in 15. I was a retail pharmacist for a little while and then found this company Onsite RX. So we run on-site or near-site full-service pharmacies for large self-funded insurers. So started as a pharmacy manager for them, got promoted to a clinical account manager. Now I'm the director of pharmacy. So I oversee 10 locations across 4 states. I see a lot of pricing on this stuff. So I'm excited to talk about GLP-1s and see if I can't shed a little light on the complexities that is the pharmacy pricing industry.
Sure. So let's start with these PBMs. This is a relatively new term for me. I actually was trying to brainstorm some questions for you with ChatGPT, and I thought it was PCM, and Chat corrected me. So tell us what these PBMs are and how they play a role in the drugs that we are able to get or not, or the pricing.
Yeah, absolutely. So PBM stands for Pharmacy Benefits Managers. So they've been getting a lot of publicity in the legislation circles and a lot of times in the news right now. They are powerful, very big, complex middlemen. So they manage everything from what gets put on your formulary, discounts and rebates with plan sponsors. They process claims in real time. Most people understand, when you go to the pharmacy, you know exactly what you're going to pay in real time. You don't have to wait on an EOB or anything like that when you go to the primary care physician or the ER. So PBMs do that, and that's what they were originally set up to do. And over time, they just become more complex, more opaque, and they have their hands in just every little step of the drug process,
Hmm.
including things like utilization management. So if you've ever gone to a pharmacy and your pharmacist said, I'm sorry, that's not covered under your plan, or it needs a prior authorization, that's all set by the pharmacy benefits manager or the PBM.
Okay. And so, like, an example of a PBM is like the CVS Caremark. They've been in the news, right?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
CVS Caremark is probably, so we'll call them the big three. You've got CVS Caremark, you've got Express Scripts, and you've got Optum.
Hmm.
And one thing that we could have a whole separate podcast on is the vertical integration and how that affects the pricing. But you probably heard when I mentioned those, you've got CVS Caremark. Well, they own CVS pharmacies.
Hmm.
United Healthcare and Optum, they have Optum pharmacies. So they all own their own mail order pharmacies. Express Scripts has their own mail order pharmacies. They have their own specialty pharmacies. So that's where that complexities and opaqueness really comes into play. There's not a lot of transparency. And when you have vertical integration with things such as expensive medications, I feel like there can be a lot of smoke and mirrors, and money can kind of get away from where it was originally intended to be put up. Like if we hopefully we'll get into a little bit of the rebates and the discounts.
Hmm.
I think those all get back to the originally intended either plan sponsor or the patient. I don't think you see the full benefit of those discounts and rebates.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, because Caremark has been a lot in the news because they decided to take Zepbound off their formulary. And so now
Mm-hmm.
I think they struck a deal with Novo Nordisk to just do the semaglutide and Wegovy. So that's been
Mm-hmm.
like a big part of conversation. So how do they like benefit from this very popular high cost medication that everybody wants to get their hands on, and it seems like they are kind of gatekeeping it? Because yes,
Absolutely.
I will tell you this, for me, yesterday I received from OptumRx two letters of denial and one letter of approval for my GLP-1 on the same day.
That makes me laugh because yeah, that is what everyone deals with. Us at the pharmacy, one day something goes through for one plan, the next day it doesn't. Somebody might need a prior authorization. So let's take it back to the CVS example that you said, how they just took Zepbound off of their formulary.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I don't know the inner workings of exactly why, but I can definitely have a pretty good educated guess of what happened. So when we look at formulary management from the PBMs, you use the word they struck a deal with Novo Nordisk, and that's exactly right. Novo has probably been losing a lot of market share to Mounjaro and Zepbound. It seems to be a little bit more superior when it comes to just the weight loss part. They both have their places for diabetic treatments. So sweeten their deal more than likely, and they probably either offered a bigger discount to CVS Caremark and or a bigger rebate.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you I dive into a lot of our claims data, and I work closely with a lot of benefits consultants. So these drugs roughly can cost a pharmacy to buy around $1,000 to $1,100, but let's call it $1,000 to make the math easy. The rebates back to plan sponsors, whether it all makes it back to the plan sponsor or not, but the rebates offered on these drugs right now can be upwards of $450 to $500, which would bring the net cost to a plan sponsor or the ultimate payer about $550 when we use that $1,000 price point.
Mm-hmm.
So Novo Nordisk for CVS Caremark might have increased that rebate and to $600. And so CVS Caremark says, okay, we're going to take Wegovy off of our formula, or sorry, we're going to take Zepbound off of our formulary. We're only going to keep Wegovy, Ozempic on there because they're giving us a bigger rebate. They might not pass that whole entire end user or the plan sponsor, so that just gave them a little more margin
Mm.
to skim off of the top or to keep for themselves. Those are the formulary games that are being played.
Hmm.
And it's not just CVS Caremark. You can look at Express Scripts, you can look at Optum, you can look at any of the major players. Every year, they're jockeying for who gives me the biggest discount, who gives me the biggest rebate. And I think it was all originally started with very good intentions to lower drug costs, but we just don't see that on the plan sponsor or the end user payer side of things. But that's exactly what happened with CVS removing something from the formulary.
Hmm.
I like that term that you use. They struck a deal with Novo Nordisk, and now they're
Right.
the exclusive GLP-1 on formulary.
And so some people have like a discount card or some kind of rebate. When I first started taking it, I was able to get some kind of like card from Eli Lilly that
Mm-hmm.
reduced the cost to like be slightly more reasonable. So how do those cards work, or how do those coupons, I don't know, work?
Yeah. When I'm going to use Manjaro for the example here,
Yeah.
just because you use Lilly as well. So when the product was first launched, they were trying to make sure it got a lot of market share and a lot of traction. So these manufacturers will offer these manufacturer copay cards. A lot of them start out where your insurance has to cover your primary insurance has to cover the product, and then they help lower your copay because these
Right.
are obviously expensive brand name meds. Well, it was interesting when Manjaro first launched, you could get the card, and whether your insurance paid for it or not, they had those $25 copay cards early on.
Hmm.
So you didn't have to worry about prior authorizations or your plan not covering it for weight loss. You just went online, got the Manjaro card, it was $25. They transitioned as the market share got crazy and they were obviously giving this drug out for $25. They transitioned, and those coupons then said you had to attest that you were a diabetic patient to get them. Now, you could still just click the button and you got it for $25. Then they went through and said, okay, now these are no longer going to work for cash paying patients. Your primary insurance must cover it. And so that's the situation we find ourselves now. If your primary insurance covers the drug, it will lower it down to the $25 copay.
Hmm.
If it does not, between Mounjaro and Ozempic, it lowers it down to $550 or $650. Depends on, they change them every now and then. Those are the latest numbers I have.
Hmm.
And what they've done is both Lilly and Novo have started these direct to consumer programs for the
Yep.
cash paying patients, and they've essentially matched those coupons. So you can get, the certain strengths of the vials sent directly from Manjaro or sent directly from Eli Lilly or sent directly from Novo Nordisk. And so they've kind of aligned that, and it's whether you get a prescription and go to a pharmacy and use the copay card as a cash paying patient, you're going to pay $650 for the Manjaro pens, or you can get the vials for $550 sent directly to you. It's interesting. We've not seen these direct to consumer programs before, so this is kind of new to the industry. But the GLP ones are something like we've never seen before. So it's going to be interesting to see how these programs continue to develop.
Yeah.
And I think they were also combating a lot of the online compounding pop-ups that started. They were trying to get as close to a cash price as they
Hmm.
could and send those direct to consumers.
Do you have any strong feelings or thoughts about compounding pharmacies?
Yeah, so absolutely love compounding pharmacies, and I think they serve a great purpose. However, as a pharmacist, we're one of the most regulated healthcare professions, and we have to stick to those. As of everything that I know legally right now, there should not be compounding pharmacies compounding the semaglutide and the tirzepatide right now. So the way this works is when a product is officially put on the FDA shortage list,
Hmm.
compounding pharmacies are able to get the active ingredients and compound this up, and they can what's called essentially copy the reference product, the brand product there of Manjaro or Ozempic in this case. Once a product gets removed from the FDA shortage list, that's supposed to stop. It's just a patch to get people through. However, there were some temporary injunctions in place.
Hmm.
So the outsourcing facilities association brought some lawsuits, and they did receive a temporary injunction, and that allowed some compounding pharmacies to keep going and making these. However, both of those temporary injunctions for semaglutide and tirzepatide have expired. The lawsuits are still ongoing. So everything, if I owned a compounding pharmacy right now and I had been making semaglutide and tirzepatide, I would not be sourcing it per the FDA guidance that they've put out. If it goes back on the shortage list, I'd be ready to ramp up and provide that to my patients. But that is not something I'd want to play around with right now.
Yeah, but it's still out, like very much out there. Every day new ones.
No.
I was just talking to a gal who does my Botox, and she was saying they're not having a problem getting it at all.
And they're not. It's going to be very difficult to regulate that. Everyone ramped that up. You had your 503A facilities, your 503B facilities, like anybody and everyone that could make it and source it, they were. It's going to be very difficult for the FDA to figure out exactly who all's still doing that. State boards of pharmacies, it's going to be difficult to track that. So it's wildly still available.
Sure.
I would just not be the compounding pharmacy owner that was still making it.
Yeah. Maybe people are just like, let me get my cash now. And then, if the FDA comes for me, I'll deal with that fine later. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I'll go to Costa Rica. I'll have so much money. It's fine. So just this week, I don't know if you heard the news. I believe that there was an announcement about getting rid of prior authorizations for medications. RFK, I think, announced something like that. Do you have any? Do you think that has any chance of lowering the cost of the medication, or is that more on the side of the paperwork and the annoyingness of getting it?
Yeah, so I think prior authorizations are important for plan design. So again, I said I work with a lot of large self-funded employers, and I also have a lot of physician friends, a lot of family members that are in the medical field. As a pharmacist, it is very frustrating when a prescriber says, hey, you need this medication. You go to the pharmacy and then it's blocked by the insurance company. And a lot of physicians will tell you, or prescribers will say, well, I'm the prescriber. I should be able to write what I want. I'm all for that. But there are some cost controls in there. I don't think that removing prior authorizations, that's not going to have a direct effect on the pricing. The manufacturers and drug companies are just going to say like, oh, great, we have free reign of the market. We're going to capitalize on this. They're not going to say, cool, we're going to get a lot more people on this drug. Let's lower the price, cut it in half. That's not going to happen. So when prior authorizations and another thing's called step therapy, which means let's take a diabetic and semaglutide, for example, here. Some step therapy may say you have to show us that you've been on metformin and you still need something else, or you've been on metformin and failed it for side effects, or it wasn't controlling your A1C like we thought it should. Those things still need to be in place strictly from a overall cost control. If you can go to a prescriber, go to your PCP or even a specialist, and they have free reign, no prior authorizations to start with the most expensive medication, they're going to start more than likely with the newest, best. Just saw a commercial for it. Honestly, just had a drug rep in my office and brought me lunch. When if you're just diagnosed, you might be able to start with another tried and true, cheaper generic medication. So I understand the concept of trying to remove some barriers to medications. I just don't think a blanket, let's remove prior authorization is the right way to go about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you still have, when we're talking specifically about these GLP1s, you're still going to have plans that say, well, we're just not going to cover it for weight loss. So it doesn't matter if there's a prior authorization or not. You can just blanket say, I'm not covering it for weight loss. And you could then still say, well, you have to have a diagnosis of diabetes. I'll tell you, most of the plans that we work with, it's very quick and easy to get the prior authorizations approved when you have a diabetic patient. So I don't think it's that big of a hurdle for the diabetic side. The weight loss side, we still have a lot of plans battling. Are they going to pay for it or are they not going to pay for it? Unfortunately, I think both of these are great compounds. It's life-changing for so many people. But unfortunately, a lot of plans have still chosen not to cover for weight loss.
One issue that I hear constantly from others on their GLP-1 journey is digestive concerns. Between the smaller meals and a slower gut, these issues are real, but Grüns helps keep things moving. With 6 grams of fiber in just 8 gummies, that's 3 times more than most green powders. If you haven't been introduced yet, Grüns are a convenient, comprehensive formula packed into 8 gummies a day. This isn't a multivitamin, a greens gummy, or a prebiotic. It's all of those things and then some at a fraction of the price. And bonus, it tastes great. So if regular digestion is your struggle, try Grüns and feel the difference. And if you want to give them a try, visit Grüns.co, that's GRUNS.co, and use the code GLP1HUB, that's GLP, the number 1, hub at checkout, and you can get 52% off your order. And now it's time for our Hero Bread tip of the week. And today I have an RD confession, which is my favorite snack. So you want to know what I always reach for when the 3 to 4 o'clock p.m. hunger hits? One of the most satisfying snack combos out there. A Hero Hawaiian roll with a mini Baby Bell cheese inside. You guys have to try it. This satisfying snack has 8 grams of protein, and 0 grams net carbs. The little hint of sweetness from the rolls with the saltiness from the cheese really, really hits the spot, and you won't even know that these rolls are low in net carbs, I promise. So if you want to give the rolls a try, you can get 10% off your first order with the code GLP, the number one hub at hero.co. That's GLP1 hub hero.co. They're developing a lot of new drugs. So pills, and I mean, they already have a diabetes pill, but for weight loss. Do you think that that will bring the cost down at all when there's like more options?
It will, but not immediately. So, and you're correct, there are several GLP and GIP combos in the pipeline coming to the market. What's going to happen more than likely is they're going to set the price right about the price of Ozempic and Mounjaro, and they're not going to really offer a huge discount. We typically don't see drug pricing get a lot cheaper until about a year or even two after the patent life wears out. So when it goes patent and you can get generics out there, it normally takes a few months to, like I said, a year or even two to get enough companies making the generic, and you'll start slowly, stepwise, kind of seeing the price go down just a little bit. I know that's not what anybody wants to hear. I actually had this conversation yesterday with a client of ours. They asked the exact same question. In my professional opinion, I do not see these magically getting cheaper with more brand names coming to market. It's going to take more generics, and that's going to be a while for these patents to run out.
I think we've got a few years, right, on the semaglutide.
And I would be surprised if there's not some legal battles to try to extend the patent lives. We've seen that a lot with some higher dollar specialty meds. They've been able to get some extended patent lives as they work through new indications, or they just wrap it up in a legal battle. So they just keep extending it. You know, if they can get market exclusivity for another year or two, they'll try that. And unfortunately, we've been seeing that a lot with some higher dollar specialty meds. So it'd be interesting to see if Lilly and or Novo maybe take that route, because there's lots of new indications coming out. I know you've probably seen that, the sleep apnea ones, and so that's another formulary decision that's going to have to be made. So maybe a plan doesn't cover it for weight loss, but they'll say, okay, I'll cover it for sleep apnea caused from obesity. Is that going to open up the market, and is that going to open up maybe an avenue that they can, definitely not a legal scholar, but is that going to open up an avenue that they could try to extend the patent life, because now, hey, we're doing this for a sleep apnea now. So it's going to be very interesting to see over the next few years how these drug pricings change.
Yeah.
And something else I'll tell you and anyone listening is these prices typically go up about twice a year, around the first of the year and around July. From our purchasing side, we typically see a small increase on brand name drugs, and it depends based on the drug and the plan. But what happens is they may raise the price $50. Our acquisition costs $50, but it's probably because they have something built into the contract with the PBM that the rebate's going to go up $50. So we actually see the opposite happen. We see the drug price kind of increase as it goes along with increasing rebates. Like I said, we could have the same way we could have an entire podcast on vertical integration. We could really go down a rabbit hole with rebates and what happens in that game, unfortunately.
Sure.
The end user patient is not at anyone's forefront when they're talking about the money. I can tell you that.
It's frustrating because, like you said, this medication is life-changing for a lot of people, and it's just, the cost is very challenging. Do you, as a pharmacist, just in general, I know you kind of work on more of like a higher level, have concerns about the widespread use of this medication? I have some as a dietitian, but like from a pharmacy point of view.
Yeah, I do. I think the biggest thing for me is I like people to use one pharmacy so pharmacists can do what we're trained to do and catch drug interactions, help treat the entire patient. When people start having to source this product because of the cost or because of non-coverage from their insurance company or their PBM, they may be buying semaglutide or tirzepatide compounded from a different place every month. Those people, while I know they try to ask what meds you're on, it's not being checked. We don't have a shared system in pharmacy. Pharmacy A is not going to give their dispensing data to pharmacy B in real time to say, oh, but this patient's also on this. So I have a problem or a caution about drug interactions. I also think that a lot of people that are able to just, get a quick online visit and say, hey, we'll send this to a compounding pharmacy. Do they truly need the medication? I mean, you've probably seen in your practice where somebody might just be like, oh, I just had this last stubborn 10 pounds. But then they stay on Mounjaro or Ozempic for months and months and months. I don't necessarily think that's the best approach to it. Um, Definitely, like I said, these drugs are life changing. I wish more plans would cover it for weight loss because
Mhm.
we don't know the downstream cost to the medical side of things or even the pharmacy side of things if we don't get our obesity under control. I think that's something that's stopping a lot of plans though from paying it from weight loss is we don't have data that says if we pay for these expensive drugs every month now, what downstream things are we saving? So they haven't been out enough to go, okay, well, this patient was obese. If they would have carried on this obese path, would they have had a heart attack we'd have had to pay for? Would they have had an amputation because their diabetes got out of control? So I think there's a lot of things that need to happen and some more data needs to come out to maybe open this up a little bit more from a payer standpoint to where
Mhm.
you can come to your regular pharmacist and pharmacy and we can make sure that there's no drug interactions, that you're on the appropriate dose, that we can help counsel through maybe some nutrition things or, you know, as you know, how it slows the gut down. Are you making sure that you're eating the right things? Because, these don't these are going to suppress your appetite. That you need to make sure that the little small things that you are eating are still nutritious enough to satisfy the needs that your body has ongoing. So,
Mhm.
like most of my
Yeah.
answers, I know that was long winded, but yes, I do have some concerns with this just exploding like it has.
Yeah, yeah, I think that I agree that while on one hand I want more coverage and more availability and it not to be so expensive, I live here in a high rent area and people abuse it left. I mean, everyone's on these medications and
They are.
I don't think some of them need it that much,
Yes.
or they take it way too far and or they pop on and off and it's just like because you can if you can afford it, you just can.
And that's what we've seen too. That's exactly the same case. If you live in a higher income area or a little more affluent area, you've got people on it, and you're like, you don't have any weight to lose, or they've used it to the point to where I mean, for a lack of a better term, they look like a walking skeleton, and
Hmm.
I'm not sure what their ultimate goal is, but yeah, that gives me a little bit of concern as well that people do take it a little too far, and if you can, like I said, I'm all for ease to access of care, but when you can jump online and have a quick video consult, and then 2 days later you've got the medicine sitting in your mailbox in a refrigerated little container. I'm not sure that the actual process that should be in place and the checks and balances were there to make sure that you're a suitable candidate for this medication.
I've been getting these ads on my Instagram now that says, are you skinny but want to lose more weight? We'll give you GLP-1, like come to our site or
Wow,
whatever.
I've
And
not
there's
seen
like,
that.
well, it's probably because I'm like always looking for
Right, right.
GLP-1. So I'm a target market. Yeah, and it's like a picture of this girl and she's like, oh, I lost 10 pounds. Look how cute I am now. And it's like,
Yeah, so
okay,
that just goes to show you the audience that they're trying to play into, especially with these compounded ones, right? So
right.
I do think that the diabetic patients that are overweight, obviously they're getting this through the proper channels and
Hmm.
getting the branded meds from Lilly and Novo. But these compounding people, they've obviously focused their shift to, hey, let's just go after these people that are probably really don't need the drug, but they've got disposable cash and they're going to keep buying it.
Right, right, exactly. I think that there are also one final question about Medicare. Are they gonna? I know that there's been some negotiation about it being covered on Medicare for weight loss, and it is not yet. Do you think that that's going to happen? Because I think I read something that one of the drug companies sued the government because they don't want it to be covered under Medicare for weight loss.
Yeah, so lots of stuff is going on in legislation, obviously with the new Inflation Reduction Act and taking these certain drugs and Medicare's negotiating the prices on them. I think like you said, the companies may not actually want it to be covered under Medicare for weight loss because then they have these price negotiations and things to go through. Would be shocked if we see it covered for weight loss on Medicare anytime soon, just because
Hmm.
again, I don't know that the data's there to say what are we doing to save money, and that's what that's all about. They're trying to say, okay, if we cover it for weight loss in Medicare, are we going to thwart bigger bills, whether that's on the Medicare, A and B side on the doctor and hospital side, or is it on further down on the Med D side? Because if we put somebody on $1,000 weight loss drug, are they going to come off? Do they lose weight and their blood pressure meds come off? Well, they might only be on a couple dollar a month lisinopril, but I put them on $1,000 drug to do that. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. my gut tells me that it's not going to be covered for weight loss on Medicare anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that they can justify it. But
My
that makes sense to me. So more than likely, it'll be covered under Medicare tomorrow for weight loss.
My father-in-law had a hard time getting Medicare to cover it for sleep apnea. His doctor prescribed it,
Yep.
and they were kind of rolling it around, and he didn't feel that passionate about trying to fight for it.
Right. They're so slow with these new indications to add anything, so
Mm-hmm.
that I don't think that that's gonna be anytime soon. But you brought up one good point. I do want to make sure I make this. If anybody that's listening, I want you to know that you have to be your own advocate. Nobody is going to advocate for you and your health care like you will. Try to partner with your pharmacist, and if not just for these drugs, if it's any medication, if you're getting a prior authorization or denial, work with your prescriber, but work with your pharmacist. See if there's copay cards out there that could help alleviate it, but don't stop. These plan designs and the PBMs and the insurance formularies, they want you to give up a lot of times. Like, you can get it covered. You may have to do a prior authorization, you may have to appeal it, and then you may have to do the final appeal. But it keeps going to different levels of different clinical people to review it. If you really truly believe that you need this medicine or you need this procedure, just be an advocate for yourself and don't give up. Just keep filing the prior authorization and keep filing the appeals process, and stick with it. Because if you and your prescriber both think you need the medication, if they do their part and you stay diligent, a lot of times we have success getting some of these drugs covered. Not necessarily the weight loss, but just drugs in general. I just wanted to throw that out there for anyone listening, to be an advocate for yourself.
I do feel like they want you to give up, because every day, every month, there is drama over this for me. Every month.
Yeah. And they want you to get tired of it. So they play the same games with us from like reimbursement standpoints or audit standpoints. They may come take money back from a claim because something was typed a little bit wrong, or we didn't put the right, we transferred a prescription in and the date was one day off. And so, like, we can fix that kind of stuff, but they make it to where you've got to send all this paperwork in, and they just want you to be like, oh, okay, that was just a $20 claim. I'm not going to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
But they do that enough times across, tens of thousands of pharmacies a year, or they are able to get, hundreds of thousands of patients to give up on a prior authorization process. Well, now they don't have to cover $1,000 drug or a $27,000, specialty drug. So really, really connect and, find good healthcare providers, find a really good pharmacist, and ask questions. And just, like I said, I can't reiterate it enough, just advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Don't give up. I agree. That's a great piece of advice. So thank you so much for coming on today, Josh. I was really looking forward to this conversation and learning more about all the ins and outs, and maybe if there's hope for these drugs to not cost $1,500, but I think it's going to be a minute.
It's going to be a minute, unfortunately. But yeah, I appreciate the time, enjoyed having it. Happy to chat and talk. When this comes out, I'll try to do my best to keep up with if there's any comments on the YouTube channel or any of the podcast avenues, and see if I can't respond to that for people.
Cool. Thank you so much once again.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope you have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the GLP-1 Hub podcast. I learned so much from Josh. I think we barely scratched the surface of this wild thing that is health insurance and pharmaceutical sales and all of the things. Just so much to cover there. But I hope that you were able to learn a lot and it wasn't too complicated. We have a better understanding now of all the things that we are up against. And thank you so much to all of our podcast sponsors for this episode. I also want to highlight specifically Calocurb. Calocurb is an appetite management supplement featuring a patented hops extract called amarosate. It is clinically shown to reduce cravings by 40%, hunger by 30%, and calorie intake by 18% in just 1 hour. And if you want to give it a try, they are offering my audience 10% off when you use the code ANA10. That's ANA, the number 10, at calocurb.com. And I'll see you on the next episode.